day 2 of our challenge. Now, if you haven't watched yesterday's, you can just go back and watch it now. This one is going to be all about pricing and how you run trials for your groups. I see a lot of questions about pricing, and what I want to delve into here is not only about the actual pricing, but also about your messaging and the value that you place on your lessons, not devaluing your group lessons because they're not learning individually, and also how to run trials, because that is a big question with groups too. So how do I price my classes? Now, this is a big question that gets asked quite a lot. And the reason that there's some uncertainty around it is because there's not really a solid answer. I have heard some people talk about charging the same as your one-to-one or even more. That doesn't resonate with me personally, because I think if a child is getting your one-to-one attention, then that has to have cost implications. They have to be paying more for that. I personally like to think of my lessons as accessible and inclusive, as well as all of the other things that group can be. So I price my lessons based upon that. But the other thing is that we need to think about context. So what are other classes where size is limited charging in your area? If there are some early years music classes going on, what are they charging? If you teach one-to-one lessons, what do you charge for those? And it's just about sitting somewhere that you feel comfortable in terms of both feeling like you're being paid well for your time, but also feeling like your parents are getting a price that is affordable for them, so that obviously then you get more families in. I am going to tell you about my own situation. So one-to-one, I don't teach one-to-one, but one-to-one classes in the UK as a national average, when I was pricing my group classes, were around £16 for half an hour. And that is now, I think, more like £17.50. So what I decided to do was, for my half an hour classes, I decided to charge half of that national average cost. So I charge £8 for half an hour, but then I have 8 children in my room. So that is £64 for half an hour, and I do £12. I actually do £11, but I should do £12 for 45 minutes. I'm not going to advise you to go with 11. And I pay about £25 room hire per hour. So you can work out the maths there. It's a very, very good hourly rate, and I'm very happy that I have lots of families that can afford that. They're happy to pay that, and I think they would pay more, but that again doesn't necessarily resonate with what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to teach lots of children and give opportunities to as many children as I can. However, some of you might decide that actually this is a chance to not only get a higher income per hour, but also to make a really exclusive program that you might only have 3 or 4 per class. And you might want families that are really dedicated and are going to practice really hard. We'll talk about messaging in a minute, because I think that's quite important. But I think my main point is that even amongst the Keynotes teachers that use the Keynotes program, there is a huge variety of what people will charge. And so therefore, there isn't really a right answer. There are people in the US and Canada who charge more than I do for their Keynotes classes. And that's because they're in an area where that's the expectation. Okay, so you need to think about context. But what I really want to make sure that you don't do is undervalue your groups and think that you should go cheap, because you definitely shouldn't. And I absolutely advise that you do not advertise your classes based on the fact that they're cheap. And cheaper than one-to-one, because that's not what the benefits are for groups. There are so many other benefits that we need to market our group lessons on, and cost is not one that I would necessarily focus on. I just wanted to turn a little bit of attention to you thinking about the messaging with your groups. As I just said, I would not want you to think, right, my messaging is going to be that these are cheaper than one-to-one. But what is your messaging going to be? What are the benefits? And when you think about pricing, you can think about those benefits when, in relation to your pricing. So what will they get from your groups and what is the value of that? My own parents would say that they love the social setting, their kids are motivated, they love coming to the class, but also that with our programme there's an all-around music education, there's a wider music education. We do listening, composing, improvising. We're not just teaching piano. The piano is the focus and it is what kind of inspires all of the other things that we're doing. And all the games that we're playing. But parents nowadays, they really know about a more child-centred approach, and they also often have not great memories of their own one-to-one lessons. So I tend to go in on that angle, that this is very child-centred. This is an approach that is really tailored to the way that children learn. They don't learn on their own in isolation in any other area of their education. So that's kind of my messaging. But also for me, as I've said, my lessons are really accessible. They're very affordable, and I wouldn't advertise them based on that, but I know that within myself. That's why I've decided to price them the way that I have. So think about why your parents should sign their kids up to your groups. What is it that they're going to benefit from? Why are your groups going to be really fantastic? And all that messaging that you develop from thinking about these things will then inform all of your marketing that you do for your groups. So everything that you say about your groups needs to be based around your messaging. I wanted to talk about trials and how you get your group started, how you get an initial group of children into your room, but also how you manage your trials ongoing. The reason I want to focus on this for a little bit is because it's something that I think I got wrong at the beginning, and I don't want you to do the same. So how can we get our kids to try out our lessons without having to commit to a payment plan or to commit to paying by semester or term? And that is that we can give them a 3-week trial. I don't believe in free trials, because I think with free trials, and I learnt this the hard way, you tend to get families that might not be so responsive in terms of replying to your emails. They might not even show up. They might show up but then not respond to your email after you've done your trial. And when I was very frustrated about this in the early days, I learnt very quickly, not only from other piano teachers, but also from other people in the general children's activity industry, that actually you need parents to commit some money, you need them to pay for a trial in order for them to take it seriously, in order for them to be a good potential customer. And you do not want to be wasting a lot of your time on admin for these free trials when so many of them are very unreliable. So I recommend a 3-week trial. 3 weeks is a great number of lessons. 3 classes is a great number of lessons for kids to know whether they are enjoying coming, whether they want to carry on, for parents to know whether their kids are engaged. One class, they might be, even 2 classes, they might be a little bit reticent to join in. They may be a little bit shy. They need to just get the lay of the land. I like to give them 3 classes, because by the 3rd, they really understand the routine of your class. They understand the structure and they understand what's going on. And they tend to then start to enjoy it because their expectations are managed. So 3-week paid trials. And if you have something like My Music Stuff, which is what I use, you can even get the parents to pay for their trial as the first point of contact with you. So you can get the widget, the sign up widget, you can set it up in My Music Staff so that the parent has to pay on application to your class for 3 weeks, and then you contact them and say, this is your start date, these will be your 3 classes. That is, I found, it's honestly life-changing in terms of your managing your admin and things, because you get parents that are really committed, they're going to show up, and if they, if they've paid before even contacting you about anything else, then it sets the tone right. So that's what I recommend. Once, obviously, you're at the point where you need to launch your classes, and you might launch with 4 kids, 6 kids, 8 kids, and you probably wouldn't launch until you've got enough to get a group together. You might then be wondering what happens if not all of those 3-week trials continue. Well, what you need to do is make sure that you've got a super flexible program or curriculum where you can bring kids in to your class throughout the year. And that's why I tend to not recommend when you launch, starting with a book, a normal linear 1-to-1 method book, and moving through, because you'll have kids joining week 4, week 5, week 6, and they'll have missed the first kind of pages. So that is something that needs a lot of consideration. But ideally, you want your classes to be flexible. You want to be able to offer 3-week trials all throughout the year if you need to, and you will get to the stage where your classes will be full and you'll have a waiting list, so you won't need to so much, but you need that flexibility. Now, I think because, as I mentioned, contexts vary hugely here. Have a think about your own situation, your own context, and then I think the most important thing for you to do is ask me any questions that you have. If I don't know the answer because I'm based in the UK, then I'm sure I can ask some other teachers who I know deliver their group classes if you've got any questions about pricing. I've given you basically a rough outline, but also essentially I've told you that it really depends and there's no right answer. But if you have some questions about your own situation, do just let me know. Again, you can type in the comments below, or you can email me and I will leave my address under the video.